Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff. I'm so excited because this is the night of the week that I get to talk to Richard and Michael. How are you guys doing?
We're doing awesome. I'm doing great.
You're doing great?
I'm
Good. Doing
good.
Yes.
I'm
Good.
fine. I'm acceptable.
Okay.
I'm at a perfectly acceptable level during week whatever the fuck we're in of the pandemic.
Richard,
This
what's the opening theme song of The Kids in the Hall? We're having an average
weekend. We're having
Yes.
an average pandemic.
We're having an average quarantine.
Well, we we are talking to you on Blur's Day, the 47th of March, February. Feels like an unending blur of days, but the time that I get to talk to Michael and Richard about their Mount Rushmore of anything is exciting. And you know what? I am excited because tonight we are talking about the Mount Rushmore of like the toughest guys. And this was
I'm so
Michael's.
glad you got the accurate title.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mess up. Like the toughest guys.
I thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Why'd you choose it?
Well, two reasons. One reason is one of the picks I have, but another reason, I've been reading a book to my child Felix that's called Tough Guys Have Feelings Too by a writer named Keith Negley, and it's all about it's like this, these individual vignettes of these wrestlers who are crying, and a knight who has broken his sword, and a motorcycle man who has run over a squirrel, and a race car driver who loses a race, and these ninjas that are fighting with each other, and it's all about how even all the toughest people in the world can cry and have feelings, trying to build this kid up emotionally to be okay with being mad and sad and all this stuff. But then I saw a movie recently, one of my longtime favorite movies, and it was like, oh my God, that is like the toughest guy I've ever seen.
Okay. Then.
So, it's a little bit of each side of the coin. You're trying to. So, of course, that's why my first pick is Morrissey. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
All right, well, let's jump right in. Richard, what's your first choice? Well, like the toughest guys.
All right. So I know that we could, in theory, have picked fictional or real characters. I went all real. I was just I just found myself to be more intrigued by a real life tough guy than anything that was on screen.
Yeah.
The only thing that I excluded from my potential list was like superheroes. Because I didn't want to get into like an argument or a discussion on like, but the Silver Surfer really is made out of impenetrable skin, and he's technically the toughest. I didn't want to go down that path. So I'm glad you kept it a little bit more realistic.
Right. And my first choice is Senator John McCain.
Oh wow, awesome.
I mean, look, I'm not going to get into his politics. That's for a podcast on another day, whether he was as much of a maverick as his reputation would claim that he would be, at least in terms of his political career. But the guy toughed out 5.5 years as a POW in North Vietnam, including putting in several months in the Hanoi Hilton. That's a tough guy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read the stories about him when his time during being in a POW camp during the Vietnam War, and just the fact that he had the opportunity to leave early because his dad was admiral, and he turned it down and basically said, no, if you're going to release anybody, release us in terms of when people first got here. So I'm not gonna go. And I would have cracked after like 20 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I like my country well enough and all. You might even say I love my country.
Yeah.
But enough to put up with daily beatings? No thanks, Skipper. I'm out on that one.
Why? So I don't think of you as what's cool about this is I perceive you to be reaching across party lines here, perhaps. And he's,
sure.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of an open-minded thing.
Well, I think this is a terrible pick because, as we all know, I like guys who don't get captured.
Yeah,
That's true.
Which is the most unfortunate thing about John McClane.
John McClane.
Who?
See, he also got captured.
Maybe spoiler alert. That might come up later on. But John McCain. It's unfortunate that so much of our recent history is just stained with like the thoughts of a moron. And like, I unfortunately, like, sure, he was, a Republican and believed in a lot of things that I didn't believe in, but like, man, to have your entire legacy just tinged by like this asshole who just says the stupidest shit. And it's just so unfortunate for like human history to like think of all the different people that he's like shat upon just recently because he just learned about what they did.
It's an idiot sandwich because he has Sarah Palin on the other side, doesn't he?
Mm.
John McCain?
If you get a chance to see the movie, HBO movie about the presidential election and the choice of Sarah Palin as his vice presidential candidate, it's fascinating. It's fascinating how he basically was cajoled into this, didn't really want her as his pick, didn't really think she was qualified. So that's politics. I'm leaving that aside. I'm talking more about John McCain, the war hero. Mm-hmm. I mean, the man couldn't lift his arms over his shoulders for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hey, hell of a he couldn't, he couldn't do a full dive into a pool, but he could do a hell of a jackknife.
That's true. His cannonball.
When we specialize in jackknives and cannonballs going forward.
Winfield, what's your first choice?
Well, I have a rare first choice of someone who's on the actual Mount Rushmore, and that is, of course, Theodore Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes. Sure.
Who he was like a tough guy from when he was a kid because he had like this terrible asthma that he just kind of like fought off, that he just like grew out of. He just kind of
scared it away.
He out-toughed asthma, which is just like an incredible thing that you're like, or like once you do that when you're in your, late boyhood, early teens, it's like, I guess the sky's the limit. And, literally for this guy, he went on to become a politician and then at some point kind of failed at that a little bit. And then it was like, okay, now I'm going to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
And like just the decision that you make in life where you're just like, well, I didn't do well here. I'm going to be a cowboy. And then you become president. It's just, you're literally starting to like tick off the things that are in like a coloring book of like, what kind of job do you want to be? I don't know. In the army and a cowboy and the president and also a boxer and maybe wrestled bears. Who knows? He's also one of those great, like, tough guy characters in real life who you can almost believe anything that happened to him. And he's like, oh yeah, he arm wrestled a bear and he didn't win, but he got close and he didn't die. And you're like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, that's so Rooseveltian.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a case. You could make a case for 3 of the 4 presidents that are on Mount Rushmore as being like tough guys.
Yeah, Lincoln with the Lincoln leg lock. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Lincoln leg lock, as we've discussed, and being this general woodsman kind of frontier guy, and Washington being a kick-ass soldier. Jefferson, not so much, kind of a dandy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, absolutely with Teddy Roosevelt, I think this is a strong first pick, Michael.
Thank you. Teddy Roosevelt too was like a tough guy in glasses too. Like he could just like it doesn't matter what he like at every point in his career was like, oh yeah, now he's like an environmentalist or he was into conservation at least, not necessarily environmentalist, but like he's literally like a comic book character.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, Daniel O'Brien, wrote a book called How to Fight Presidents, and Roosevelt is the end guy. Roosevelt is the boss.
He's the last boss.
Yeah, he's the last boss. Basically, did talk about how as a youth he beat asthma basically by just taking up boxing and wrestling. He's so determined to overcome asthma, to kick its ass, and then just kind of spend his life deciding I'm going to beat everything up. And as O'Brien writes, he took whatever path seemed harshest and most dangerous, surrounding himself with whatever inspired the most terror, in italics and parentheses, like Batman, you guys. So he summed up his life philosophy and his sheer immersive approach to life simply: man does in fact become fearless by sheer dint of practicing fearless, like holy fearlessness. So yeah, I think that's pretty amazing. I think like, oh, how do you become fearless? Just by every day confronting the scariest shit in the world. A cattle rancher, a deputy sheriff, an explorer, a police commissioner, the assistant secretary of the Navy, the governor of New York, and a war hero, and a cowboy, as you said. His mother and wife died on the exact same day, and while some people just lock themselves up in a room and cry, he left his home behind and moved out into a wild, untamed area. He went out west to work as a cowboy. Like, wow, crazy. What a ballsy dude. He didn't have bones.
Maybe not the best father, but good cowboy.
Yeah, no bone spurs on that guy. Cool. Okay. Anything else on that one? Moving on. Yep. Manfredi.
All right, my second one is kind of goes in the vein of an actor who is known for portraying a tough guy and was also a tough guy in real life. And the man I'm talking about is Charles Chuck Bronson.
Oh, right
on. Best known for, I guess, right, for portraying Paul Kersey, the architect turned vigilante of the Death Wish series.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, if you saw Charles Bronson walking down the street, would you mess with him? No. I mean, now probably because he's been dead for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
But you don't want zombie Bronson going after you either.
That's a tough zombie out. Even though he was 81 or whatever he was when he died, that's a tough draw if that's the one you get.
Yeah.
But also someone who was a legitimate tough guy in real life. Mm-hmm. Grew up in extreme poverty during the Great Depression. Family was a Lithuanian immigrants, and he learned to speak English when he was a teenager. His family was so poor that he actually had to wear his sister's dresses to go to school at one point. So that right there.
Yeah.
Anyone who can survive growing up in the Great Depression wearing dresses to school probably got in his share of fist fights, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Wound up enlisting in the U.S. Air Force during World War II and won a Purple Heart for wounds that he received as a combat pilot during the war. And to me, it's just Charles Bronson growing up was like the epitome of the taciturn, kind of cool, but more than anything else, just hard as nails, badass guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what's interesting? I'm looking through his filmography, and I don't know if I've ever seen. I mean, okay,
The Great Escape,
Magnificent, yeah, Great Escape, Magnificent Seven. Okay, some of his early work, but once he got into the kind of 70s crime, what he's kind of best known for, I don't think I've seen Death Wish or any of.
Really, first one's pretty great. It gets pretty dodgy by the time you hit number 12.
Death Wish 4, The Crackdown.
Yeah, it gets a little there's no story there. It's just 2 hours of Charles Bronson blowing away bad guys.
He definitely has the image. You say Charles Bronson, you're like, oh yeah, he was a tough guy, and then I realized, I've seen maybe 2 hours total of his on-screen work, and it's amazing how such a personality can kind of dominate, even through not being totally visible or totally acknowledged. I don't know. There's something there.
Yeah, I really thought about using Paul Kersey, by the way, as my choice. But there's something about, like you said, Charles Bronson just as a person and as a kind of an image that I think transcends that one character that he played. They kind of meld into each other in a way that even someone like, I don't know, Sylvester Stallone or Schwarzenegger, who played tough guys in the 80s, you still kind of knew they were acting as tough guys. Like, there was no real thought that they were going to win in a fist fight or were going to pull out a knife and shiv you. Very good chance that Charles Bronson would have done that, or at least that's the image that he portrayed, I think, to the rest of the world.
His film has 15 films with his wife, Jill Ireland, and I think that's this book I'm reading by Irwin Winkler talks about how he just bullied everybody into hiring his wife, Jill Ireland.
Oh, really?
So he was tough enough to say, you are going to hire my wife in 15 movies. There's a great, if you're a fan of Charles Grodin, you're a rare person, but if you like his his autobiographies are so fun. There's a story about how Charles Grodin, kind of improbably earlier in his career, was a TV Western heavy. And one of his attributes that gave him such gravitas was his low voice. And he recalls a scene he filmed on Have Gun Will Travel or Bonanza or Gunsmoke, where he was in a posse with Charles Bronson, and Charles Bronson out-low voiced him so severely he lost the mantle of Western heavy because Bronson could just, Grodin would say, I think we should round him off on at the pass, and Bronson would say, I think that's a good idea. And they just kept out-lowing each other until Bronson won. Hey, that's a fun choice. Yeah.
And Charles Bronson, I didn't know this until doing a little bit of research, was offered the role of the man with no name in the Fistful of Dollars trilogy.
Oh.
And turned it down because he thought the script was bad.
Oh.
So maybe not the best reader of scripts.
Yeah.
Tough guy, maybe not a great reader.
Yeah. Cool choice. Right. You got some macho dudes, Richard. These are some macho dudes so far.
Well, they're like tough guys.
They're tough guys.
Yeah. They're like tough guys.
Yeah. It's not emotional.
They're like the toughest guy.
they're like the toughest guys. They're not bad dudes. They're tough guys.
Oh, I could have chosen both bad dudes from the video game.
Knocked them off
Bad
right
Dudes,
there, yeah.
And gotten two great choices.
All right, Winfield.
I could have gone through the entire cast of Golden Axe and been like, I got the warrior and the dwarf and the elf, the wizard.
I'm drafting the entire Konami video game franchise, everyone in it, and that's just
everyone.
You've got Contra Player 2. You've got Anyway.
Winfield, what's your second choice?
Well, I flubbed this name earlier. Maybe it was subconsciously wanting to talk about John McClane from the Die Hard series of films.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe less so Die Hard 4, which I can't remember the name of, Die Hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that was...
Is that Die Hard with a Vengeance? Or Live Free or Die Hard?
Live Free or Die Hard. One of those two.
I thought it's The Edge of Insanity. No, that's Bridget Jones.
But at least from the first 3 Die Hard movies. John McClane is a great character because he is like the everyman tough guy. Sure, he does heroic things, but he's not built like Schwarzenegger or Rambo or Stallone or some of these other guys that there was an era in the mid to late 80s where the look was over muscled. You had to look like you could lift up a cow in order to defeat fill in the blank Russians. But the Bruce Willis as an actor, we might have talked about it on the podcast before, but or it's been talked about on every podcast before, but his casting was, really looked down upon because he was this comedian coming off of Moonlighting. Yeah. And for him to do a big dramatic action role was like a big gamble of sorts. But the everymanness combined with the everymanness being a tough guy who's running through broken glass or jumping down elevator shafts or, lighting up a darkened airline runway with flames and, doing all the shit that he does in the course of a number of movies is it kind of is just right on the edge of believability, which I think is what makes it work and what makes him as a character, and as a character played by Bruce Willis, like an extra tough guy, because he's almost breaking. He's like almost breaking the entire time, but he's kind of hanging tough throughout, and I think it's just really good as a tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's like, okay, when the bullets bounce off him, you're like, that's fine. When he's lifting up the giant heavy sword and slicing someone in two, you're like, okay, yeah, he's supposed to be doing that. But when, the person is hanging on by their fingertips and they look like your kind of loser uncle, you're like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. The everymanness, but also that sense that whatever it is, the grit and determination and heart is something that he's not a tank. He's just like Toyota Corolla going around.
Right.
He's got to be tough to make it through. I read that the film was sent out to Eastwood, and he didn't get the humor in it, so he passed on it, which is funny because it almost seems like Eastwood would have
made a movie with an orangutan.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. Two of them, a sequel even.
That is a funny observation. I will say that element has grown. The last of the Die Hard films that I saw, a building is demolished and he's inside of it, and he falls 100 feet in a cement building. He and his son get up and dust themselves off and get back to work. So
yeah, I think the last one I saw, he rode a motorcycle off of a thing onto like the wing of a Harrier jet, and it was like, I mean, Tom Cruise doing this in a Mission Impossible is fine, but like, that seemed like a bridge too far.
What's the thing about Die Hard that probably is evokes the most visceral reaction of nope, wouldn't do that? It's him having to walk across a floor of broken glass. That's a tough guy thing, but that's not a tough guy thing that requires you to be like some action hero, super stuntman guy. You just got to be balls out crazy to do that.
Yeah,
because you know that feeling when it's just Legos.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's bad, and then when you know it's broken glass, it's even...
He does defeat a ballet dancer and Alan Rickman, so you know he must be tough. Okay, gents, we are at our halftime, and this is the Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore.
You've been defeated by English, Jeff.
This is Mount Rushmore of like the toughest guys, and we would like you to go out and download, rate, and review past episodes. We really want to hear what you think about it, and we would love to see you join us out on the social media platforms of Facebook, of Twitter, of Instagram, to share with us your suggestions for future episodes. It would be such a cool thing to chat with you and talk with you and engage with you and get your thoughts and feelings and suggestions for how we can shape the podcast in a way that you would dig it. We'd love it. We'd love to know. We'd love to know what you think.
Richard, I love when Jeff does these promo reads and he closes his eyes like he's reading it off the insides of his eyelids.
Right, like he's got...
He just can't be distracted by our good looks.
A teleprompter in his mind that's just going.
Speaking of good looks.
Oh, look at that.
A cameo.
Mrs. Jeff Popkins.
Mrs. Jeff Popkins.
She has never been called in her life and is going to stab Mr. Jeff Hopkins in the middle of the night now.
If I was the John, she'd be the Yoko, but I'm not even the George of this band, so...
You're maybe Pete Best.
Maybe Pete Best.
Which makes you the best, is what I'm trying to say.
All right, bros. So we are back, and it's Manfredi with his third choice.
All right, my third choice is Mr. Robert Craig Knieval.
My gosh.
Better known as Evel Knieval.
That's pretty awesome.
A Motorcycle Hall of Fame inductee in 1999. But most importantly...
There's a motorcycle.
Wouldn't you go to that?
Is it mostly bikes, and they just thought we'll add a couple of rioters just for fun?
Yeah, just exactly. Mostly famous for his 75 ramp-to-ramp motorcycle jumps that he attempted in his career. I would argue that he is more famous for the ones that he attempted and failed at than anything he was actually successful at, including his rocket motorcycle attempt to go over the Snake River. In Idaho. And someone who just broke a lot of bones.
He sure did.
The first really bad, I remember I don't remember it, but you watch the footage of his Caesar's Palace crash when he attempted to jump the fountains.
Yeah.
And when he lands, you can literally see the bones breaking, like bone by bone in slow motion. Oh, there goes his femur. Oh, there goes his humerus. Oh, as he just ragdolls onto the ground and flails about. And I did not know this, but that footage was actually shot by one Miss Linda Evans of Dynasty fame.
What?
Yeah, her husband at the time was John Derek.
Oh, yeah.
And Evel Knievel had hired John Derek to shoot footage of it.
Uh-huh.
And so John Derek gave a camera to Linda Evans and said, here, you record the landing.
Wow.
So one of the most iconic pieces of footage shot by Linda Evans. My personal favorite is when he attempted to jump, I think it was something like 18 London buses at Wembley Stadium and missed, and the whole motorcycle came tumbling on top of him. And he literally landed at the feet of Frank Gifford, who was there for ABC Sports to call it.
Wow.
And he refused to let them, even though he had busted his spleen and had internal bleeding and all this stuff. He insisted on standing up, giving a speech to the London crowd, thanking them for coming, and then walking out of the arena. He was an insurance salesman before he became a stunt guy.
Mm-hmm.
And quit in the insurance world because he was very good at it and was upset that he hadn't got a promotion to vice president. So he did as you normally do, go from the world of business to the world of his first stunt was attempting to jump over a 20-foot long box of rattlesnakes and 2 mountain lions, which sounds exactly like something out of that Andy Samberg movie a few years ago.
Yeah, the Hot Rod.
Yeah, Hot Rod. Just somebody who, and when you heard him talk about doing the stunts and why he did it. Yes, he did it because there was money there, absolutely, but it felt like he was also doing it for some sort of the thrill of accomplishing it.
Yeah.
He had that kind of test fighter pilot's sort of will to try and do something that no one has ever done before.
Mm-hmm.
And he set a bunch of world records in his day. Some of them lasted for decades. So it wasn't
a dozen rattlesnakes in one line, a dozen rattlesnakes in a line, and a panther. He just started mixing in different large cats at the end. A lynx.
Right. Exactly.
So he has them all.
And those kids who were in those school buses when he jumped over looked up to him like a hero.
Literally looked at him because he was flying over his head.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, I remember the tail end of Evel Knievel.
Yeah, I remember seeing him on TV.
You're a few years older than me, so was it like a mania, or was it just here's this crazy guy who's going to break all his bones again?
I was not ever, I was raised with a lot of love, but not that much money, and we didn't really get as kids to demand whatever toys or whatever we wanted, but I needed to have the Steve Austin $6 Million Man doll, and I needed to have the Evel Knievel motorcycle thing.
The one that you pulled the little thing and it took off.
Yeah, it was a piece of crap. It crashed just as much as he did. But I do, as a kid, remember playing Evel Knievel. If I got on a bike, you wanted to be Evel Knievel. And then I also remember thinking he was a combination, as an adult, I think he was almost a combination of Elvis and Colonel Tom Parker. He was the show pony, and he was the jockey who was whipping it at the same time, who also had the imagination to think up all this just larger than life stuff that it was almost like the split personality where
Yes.
whoever it was that thought up all this stuff had no concern for the mortal coil of Evel Knievel, because
it just happened to be that it was him that
Yeah.
thought all this stuff up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think he also knew that he had a very qualified pharmacist who was going to give him all the drugs he wanted before he got on that motorcycle. So if he felt that landing, I would be very surprised. But
apparently he hated the Hells Angels, and in fact got into a fight after one of his stunts at the Cow Palace in near San Francisco.
wow.
It's a shame that in the Motorcycle Hall of Fame they're right next to each other.
Yeah, it's that ironic. Apparently one of them threw either a wrench or possibly a soda can at him. So him and a bunch of the fans turned on him and sent like 5 of the Hells Angels to the hospital.
Yeah.
So that's like a tough guy.
Amazing. Have you seen this film where the icon of masculinity, George Hamilton, portrays Evel Knievel in this film? But
Sure.
it's fun in how it kind of mixes together the different some of the stunt footage with the stuff filmed for it. But below is a transcript of the monologue. Important people in this country, celebrities like myself, Elvis, Frank Sinatra, John Wayne, we have a responsibility. There are millions of people that look at our lives, and it gives theirs some meaning. So that's pretty tough. The only thing left to us is a choice about our death, and mine will be glorious. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, he died of like a pulmonary disease. So
Yeah, that's glorious.
the glory of pulmonary disease.
You know, also, John Derek, amazing badass. Just like the world-class babe hound.
Yeah.
And he had 3 women that looked exactly alike between Bo Derek, Linda Evans, and the third was in the Bond film, like Dr. No.
Or Ursula Andress?
Ursula Andress. They all these women looked almost identical.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great pick. Great pull. The jumpsuit needs to make a comeback because so much badass stuff happened in the jumpsuit.
I believe former guest Chapin Hazlett may still have.
He has. Oh wow.
And his Evel Knievel jumpsuit.
That's.
We'll have to do some more research on that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that.
Winfield.
My third choice is the one that kind of co-sponsored my thought for this, and it was the character of Leonard Smalls, also known as the Bounty Hunter, played by Randall Tex Cobb in Raising Arizona.
Nice.
And a few weeks ago, I was watching this movie, and he rumbles into this movie like this thing out of hell, and I think H.I. McDonough is like literally talking about this fever dream that he has about this thing that has been created that comes out of the darkness to steal the child.
Yeah.
And he is just this leather-clad motorcycle bounty hunter man that is just grizzled, and his face is ruined with scars and age, and bearded, and the worst thing you've ever seen. And he's just such an imposing force in this movie, and he's just like the toughest fucking thing you've ever seen. And it's just like, man, I need to talk about this guy for like 3.5 minutes and get it all out and all my feelings of God, how impressive this guy is. And then to realize, oh yeah, he was also like in real life, this gigantic heavyweight boxer of a man that was just like a boxer and professional boxer and kickboxer, and was just like, then decided to get into movies and acting, and is like, oh, what a great transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Randall.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Randall Tex Cobb, to throw my sports knowledge in here, was definitely known more for a guy who could take a punch versus give a punch.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, his fight against Larry Holmes for the title back in 80-81, I think it was the fight that got Howard Cosell so disgusted with boxing that he quit broadcasting the sport, because Cobb just took like an absolute beating and the referee wouldn't stop the fight, and Tex Cobb was too tough to go down. So he just basically got pummeled by Larry Holmes for 15 rounds.
Well, that saved on all the makeup they had to do for Raising Arizona, 7 years later. They just like, look, he just looks exactly like he's been beat by Larry Holmes for 15 rounds.
This was my first. I saw this in the theaters, and me and some high school lovable idiots. I think we had some beers in the car, and it was one of those things where the movie just timed out. Like, this was the movie we were going to see, just because it was going to start. Then there was no Coen brothers in popular entertainment then.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, this is the trippiest shit with banjo and yodeling, and it was like the closest thing I'd seen to a Warner Brothers cartoon in a long time. And I remember noticing, speaking of cartoon characters, Woody Woodpecker is on a tattoo on both High and Leonard.
Yeah, I love that link of humanity between them. Like, he's carrying these baby boots as well, like these bronze baby boots, and then the Nick Cage accidentally reveals the Woody Woodpecker tattoo, and he's just like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like that one little aspect of humanity was revealed on this monster, that they have this same matching goofy tattoo.
Yeah.
And it's just, he just gives him the beating of his life right then and there too.
Yeah. It said that they tried to write Leonard Smalls as an evil character, not from their imagination, but one that High would have thought up, which is kind of an interesting aspect of it. He seems scary, but scary to a guy like Nicolas Cage versus somebody out of the erudite Coen's point of view. So that's fun. Fun choice. Yeah, I think I saw Randall Tex Cobb on Letterman, and boy, howdy, that was a long segment. Seeing Letterman trying to get him to just say something. He was just breathing, just heavy, and just sweating.
He managed to start bleeding at some point for no reason.
Yeah. All right, your last one, Manfredi.
My last one is Tonga Uli Uli Fafita, otherwise known in the pro wrestling world from his time in the WWF as Haku. Or from WCW when he was known as Ming.
Okay.
So there are these, what they call shoot videos in the wrestling world, which are basically, they take former wrestlers, managers, people in the business, and they interview them for a couple hours about what really went on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're depending on who's telling the stories, they can be kind of interminable or extremely entertaining. One thing that these videos all have in common is at some point they ask the person, who was the toughest guy that you ever dealt with in wrestling? To a man, they will say Haku. He was he was from Tonga, so he was kind of billed as one of those like those wild Samoan types.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'll just give you a couple of the stories of Haku. One of them, Bobby Heenan, tells a story about how he saw a bar fight where Ming literally took his middle and index finger, put it into a guy's mouth, and ripped out his two bottom teeth.
Oh, you need those for eating.
And he was like, "Look, I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it." And then, of course, went on to say, "Yeah, but he was a really nice guy, though, real family guy." There's another one. There was a fight at the airport bar in Baltimore, where all the bar fights happen.
Yeah.
Where some of the drunks decided to start accosting him and a fellow wrestler about wrestling being fake. So Haku decides to go, well, I'll show you. Reached over and bit the guy's nose off. Like clean off. There's just
these are assault charges that are needed to be
But he was
filed against this monster.
But Michael, he was a good guy, a family man. Did you not hear that part?
Never mind then. Never mind.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, he was one of two people that Andre the Giant would not mess with.
Wow.
The other one being Harley Race, for the record. If you're somebody who the 7'5", 550-pound literal giant is going to leave alone, you're like a tough guy.
Yeah. What is there a famous match for him? Was he ever a Royal Rumble guy or anything like that?
No, he was never. He was always kind of a second tier kind of wrestler. Him and his partner were known as the Islanders. So he was kind of part of the tag team title scene, but never exactly a tag team champion.
Yeah.
Even though I think he did win the tag team championship with Andre the Giant, ironically enough, from Demolition.
Yeah.
But was never a breakout solo star on his own. Was probably considered to be more of a quote unquote good hand in the ring than anything else.
Was he? Did he have a shtick? Did he speak in a dialect? Did he have all that kind of stuff, or was he just incidentally Asian, but that wasn't theatricalized? I mean, it wasn't like.
Again, his first main tag team was called the Islanders. This was WWF in the mid to late 80s. Not exactly known for their cultural cultural knowledge and awareness. So they were basically, they would come in their hula skirt, grass skirts, and wrestle in bare feet, and kind of be portrayed as these like wild Islanders.
Yeah.
That was kind of his character, was Samoan, even though he was from Tonga.
It was the Colossal Connection. That was Andre the Giant and Haku. Colossal Connection.
Pretty good.
Winfield, what's your final choice?
I do always like that, though. Sorry, I just clicked onto the Colossal Connection Wikipedia page, and I do like when they build like two guys at Andre was 7'4" and Haku 7'1", and then combined weight of 852, and that like one guy's just really carrying the load of that combined weight. It would be like Andre the Giant and like our friend Scott Jones. It's like combined weight of 712 pounds. You're like, yeah, I know who the 132 pounds of that is.
It's like Albert Einstein and Jeff Hopkins with a combined IQ of 200. Yeah, we know.
I mean, Haku didn't appear to be a small man by any means, but he was nobody is Andre.
Winfield, your final choice, please.
My last choice was the, I think, pound for pound on screen, the most badass female character to screen time that has been in the movies, and that is Private Vasquez in the movie Aliens.
Oh, fun.
Played by Jeanette Goldstein, who I guess the story of her getting hired to the movie was she went to audition for a movie called Aliens, and she's being American but of Hispanic descent, thought it was about illegal immigration. So she went in dressed in a nice skirt and was very bubbly and didn't know that it was to play like this super badass tough character. But her appearance in that movie really kind of set like a cornerstone of just tough women in films in a movie that featured Sigourney Weaver as the most badass woman that has ever been in a science fiction movie. She comes in and she's just from the get-go going, pull up for pull up with all these other tough guy Marines and insulting them and not backing down. And then, of course, she happens to be one of the two giant minigun specialists as part of this team that's going in to find out what happened to these colonists and destroying all the aliens. And she's just so incredible for such a small part in one movie that you just look at it and you're like, God, that's the fucking toughest guy I've ever seen. I wouldn't want to fuck with her.
Arm wrestled Bill Paxton in one, which is pretty close to arm wrestling a bear, I believe.
She had also that character had such a great death scene of self-sacrifice and going down with the guy that she hated as part of that she thought was a huge pussy, Gorman. When he was introduced, she was like, oh, this is just some some bureaucratic asshole, and of course, them two paired up at the end as they blow themselves up to take down some aliens. Is
Yeah,
it's just good. It's just good.
Badass death.
Right?
Yeah,
But badass death and self-sacrifice, and when you see other characters, I think there was I'm gonna fuck it up. I think it was like a Resident Evil movie that had a character that was very much like her, but it's like it was a little too on the nose. Now I'm gonna have to look that up, and we can all edit this out. No, we're not. We'll leave it in. But yeah, I just thought
her name was Vasquez. Sergeant Vasquez.
Yeah, just thought what an incredibly tough character.
Great choice. Well, I'm the toughest guy. I'm like the toughest guy because I got the toughest decision to choose from among those amazing options. Manfredi, you had the most testosterone, I think, in yours. Honestly, well, Teddy Roosevelt himself has enough testosterone for everybody, but dig the lineup. You put in there, you got an athlete, you got a soldier, you got a wrestler as another athlete, I guess. So yeah, all that was really, really cool. We've got politicians in both of our lists, so that's pretty neat. We've got guys who go into the ring. That's pretty cool. Michael had a character from cinema. Due to some of the cool insight you gave, I'm going to choose Evel Knieval because I really dig that. And Private Vasquez because girl power, because women are tough. And I didn't know some of that smack about Leonard Smalls, a.k.a. Randall Tex Cobb. So I'm going to choose that. And what the heck? Let's give one for old Chucky Bronson. So those are the Mount Rushmore. I hear them being etched into the Mount Rushmore of tough guys. Oh,
by the way, congratulations, you guys, for not making the Simpsons reference about Charles Bronson. About Bronson.
Oh, I was on the edge the entire time. I was sitting on it. It was awful.
There was no way we could work it in, but so our apologies, you guys.
All right. I hope you join us again next week for another episode. I hope you join us out on the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the commentary. This has been the Mount Rushmore of Like the Toughest Guys. I, as always, am Jeff.
I'm Richard.
Michael.